It does not come easy, video editing, and
I know I do it as well myself. It's very time consuming and it's frustrating. It's tough,
it is
man.
very
It's real skill.
I've said it to other people as well. Is like the first thing I'm going to do if I had the money is outsource all the editing.
Yeah.
And I had that thought. Like I had people like you can hire.
Yeah.
Even online or Fiverr or Upwork or any of those sites, you can hire people to do the editing for you.
Yeah.
But then here's the control freak coming in where like I kind of want to have...
I want the skill as well because they can't do it the way I want the vision to come into the reality.
This is the thing, right? And so like we're our own worst enemies when it comes to this kind of thing because expansion and outsourcing is totally available thanks to the internet. But the little control demons inside of us say, no, it's not. I need to know how much salt went into that bolognese.
It's better to do it that way, I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, no, but it's not because it stops you from actually. It stops you. So if you're a content creator, your business is the creation of the content. Leave the nitty gritty work to somebody else. You see, if your goal is
if you find the right person, then
if you find the right person, exactly. And like sometimes it's hard to do that because like the cheapest boys on Fiverr and they suffer in countries where English isn't the first language. So there's a little bit of a language barrier. Yeah. So, but then if you have anyone in the West or any friends around here, you have to pay them Western rates.
Money, yeah.
I know, yeah. Pity, all the slave labour. Good stuff. Luke McGrane, ladies and gentlemen.
Are we doing it?
We've been doing it for the last 5 minutes. Like,
okay, super.
It's nice. There's a nice sort of roll-on feature when you just sort of connect people up and just press the buttons, don't say anything and the next thing you're already in a conversation.
Cool. Before I even realised that.
Before you even realise, exactly, because you're already relaxed and it's flowing.
Yeah.
Whereas like, if it's like, right, you set, right? Hello, welcome to the latest episode of Rambleland with Luke McGrane. Luke, thank you for being here today.
I'm still here. I'm just staring at the thing.
No, so I've been really looking forward to this podcast.
Oh, me too, man.
It's been a long time coming because when I started doing the podcast, I was like, Luke, my man.
Oh, yeah.
I have to talk to you about a few things.
I've been waiting.
So I'm absolutely delighted to be able to do this. So who are you?
Cool, I'm Luke for sure. And I suppose what do I value? I value exercise, I value connection, I value wellness is probably some of the big things that I value. And then kind of like how I get on in this world is I'm an osteopath, I'm a strength and conditioning coach, a yoga teacher, and I've just been accepted to go back to college in September to study psychotherapy, which I'm so excited about. Big vocation of mine, not to do strength conditioning or osteopathy, but to do this as well, and for some bigger projects that I have coming up in the future.
Why did you go to values when I said, who are you?
I guess maybe like I think who I am is a sum of my values, and maybe who I am is a sum of my actions. I hate saying I'm Luke and I'm an osteopath because I'm so much more than osteopath, and we're all so much more than whatever job we're in. So I try and put that further down the line,
That's interesting.
Yeah,
that's a nice way of looking at it. Like, is that what you value came in second after your name, because that actually does tell a lot more about the person as opposed to your job role. Because we all know people that are like fitted into any old job they could possibly get at the time, and a lot of people don't like their jobs, and it grinds on them that the job in society is such a big part of your identity.
Yeah.
What are values though?
What are values? I suppose they're what I think are important to foster in my life, thoughts, philosophies, actions. So I suppose one of the values that I have, for example, that I mentioned that I'd be really passionate about is wellness, because I feel at my best when I feel at my best, right? I feel at my best when I'm well slept, when I'm well trained, when I have purpose, when I'm achieving, when I'm connecting with my family and friends, when I'm spending time with my wife and my dogs. So that's the value is in this wellness, right? So that's one of the things that I kind of bang my chest over. I go, yeah, like I'm Luke and I value wellness and it makes me feel good. And this is like a part of me. When you see me, I think one of the things that you see is wellness. It's something I really try to get across at least.
Why does feeling good matter?
It matters because I've spent quite a large chapter of my life feeling really bad, really struggling mentally, feeling like I couldn't connect with people, feeling like I'm out of place in society. And so as a young man, had to kind of crawl and claw my way towards wellness to see what makes me feel good, and letting go of old beliefs. These are the things that I've wellness is one of the things that has helped me become more of myself.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And how did you know what to let go and what to retain or what to move towards?
Yeah. It's something I love saying is follow the feeling. You know, I think there's a deeper universal truth that we can tap into. You can call it God or the universe or channeling or whatever it is, but there's a feeling that when you're doing your artistic expression, when you're playing your music, when you're playing your sports in jujitsu, and there's some things that feel bad in jujitsu if you're hurting your opponent for no other reason than to just hurt them. It doesn't feel good. It might feel a type of pleasure, but it's a sick pleasure. It's actually deeper. It's bad. And when you do something good, when you don't like pull excessively on the choke or the submission, it feels good afterwards. It's like, I could have hurt this guy and I didn't, because he's my brother and I want him to be able to continue on training, right? So following the feeling is like the feeling of wellness, the feeling of expression, and we can tap in, I believe, when we tap into these feelings, that they can kind of act as a compass for a really good life. So I try and follow the feeling, and one of those feelings is wellness. What makes me feel well then becomes very easy. Things like alcohol. Over the years, as I refine my wellness practice, I'm just like, it just literally takes so much and gives me almost nothing. Social anxiety and depression, great.
Seems like a fair trade-off to me, sir.
Yeah, at least if I was overworking or overtraining and I had anxiety and depression, I know I'm getting a massive payoff for it, right? You know, but just these things, they become obvious. It's kind of like maybe like a flower blossoming, because the casing around it will just fall off as the flower's colours start to come out. And that might sound a bit cheesy, but I actually think it's a very beautiful and perfect analogy for us as we like embrace our own colour and how incredible we are, and really start working towards blooming. That shit just falls away. You don't have to rip it off. Maybe sometimes you do, but it will. I think for me, a lot of the things that a lot of the things that have taken me away from wellness have fallen away, and I'm still working like deeply on myself and have very deep processes to go through in that. But that is my philosophy on wellnesses and values.
But what if I have a feeling to punch you in the face?
So yeah, there's different impulses we can all have, and start if we have a core. In my opinion, if we have a core foundation, I think most of us. So me, I turned away from religion as a young man. You were very like heavily brought into religion, so you've got these really beautiful spiritual core values that are ubiquitous to the world. Like, don't kill, don't look at your neighbor's wife, don't steal. Like, and they're not things we actually need to be told. If we kind of decide to become more spiritual, we can actually just sit down and close our eyes and we go, oh yeah, probably shouldn't steal. Oh yeah, probably shouldn't kill people.
Probably shouldn't punch Luke in the face.
Exactly. Probably. So if you're not spending that time with yourself to see what these feelings are, then you might identify a superficial impulse as, oh, I'm feeling that I should punch Luke in the face. But what you're probably feeling is something more obvious, like sadness or anger or threatened, and because you feel afraid because of that threat, or you feel you need to defend yourself, the impulse will be to punch Luke in the face. It's not and as you start to associate that's not a feeling that is in harmony or in resonance with like harmony in your life or with the world, you know, you keep on following those feelings to punch people in the face, the universe is very quickly going to show you that this is not going to work out for you. And you can do the math on that yourself, or the universe is going to eat you up. So
One thing though, to be fair, is that like a lot of the context around not stealing or not killing or not punching Luke in the face would relate to consequences and ultimate judgment. Yeah. But that's one thing that I've always stood beside, is that in the absence of a divine judgmental moment, there is no rule against, other than social obligation, then there's no rule against, if you can steal, why not steal? Like, so like in the absence of like a strong moral framework, might is right. There's it's very hard to create an argument to say if you can do something that you shouldn't, because why shouldn't you if I can? And that's one of the reasons why the Judeo-Christian values were such a powerful force. Because it curtailed everyone's very logical, rational reasoning, that Alexander the Great was such a conqueror. Why shouldn't he have had slaves and power and conquered as much as he could possibly get? Because why not?
That's true.
And that one of the things that curtailed that and to actually ward off evil and the desires inside man to dominate and to control people is that there is a Father in heaven that is going to come for you at the end of it. And whether people would say that's a superstition that just gets people to behave or whatever, I can certainly hear the argument there. How would someone without that as the core outcome dictate when you should do right or when you should do wrong?
Fair. So I suppose I predicate this thought of this feeling that is of harmony with the world around us based on my upbringing in Christianity and then my kind of new spiritual awakening as a young man studying yoga, where I'm brought back to these same truths of don't kill, don't steal, don't look at your neighbor's wife, the 10 commandments essentially from Christianity. They're very similar in yoga, in Patanjali yoga. And so that's kind of what I base all spiritual thought on. And so what I would say is that yes, might can make right in an objective context because I'm winning. But I suppose my thought on this would be that if you take from someone because you're bigger than them, even before this new understanding of unconditional love for your neighbor, if you take from someone and you know that you're bigger and they can't do anything about it, that it feels good because you're succeeding, you're achieving something, you're increasing your net value essentially. But I think there is a deeper feeling, this is what I'm talking about, these deeper feelings, that we understand what it feels like for that to happen to us, because it's happened to us. And so when we do it to someone, we recognize their suffering on a deeper level, and it hurts us because we've hurt someone like that.
What if a king was providing for his people, his subjects? You could quite rationally develop an argument in favor of conquering surrounding nations if it means his people live better.
Yeah, that's true. And I suppose it's going to be context and cultures will dictate that. I mean, I think we're in the Western world, we don't really experience violence at all, right? So for us,
no, we don't. And sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So for us, thoughts of violence is whoa, it's so far from our reality, you know. Yeah. And I suppose, we probably romanticize in Western culture the savage warrior who can control his ability to inflict violence, to be the warrior in the garden rather than the gardener in the war. And so if there are the kingdoms around you that need to be conquered, and that's just it, it's just them or us, then I wouldn't be the shaved head Tibetan yogi that says, then peace, I choose peace and let it happen. I'm probably going to have to defend myself. But along that way, I will probably try to stick to some moral compass, and maybe it changes through the ages. This might be a new age that we're in where the conscious has awoken into unconditional love. Maybe it's like a higher conscious that we've woken up into from primal states, animalistic states, and maybe there's another conscious expansion at some stage that goes to something we can't even imagine, which is maybe like
the Judgment Day.
Well, who knows? It could be something, we could call it Judgment Day, but it mightn't be as it's depicted in the Bible. It could be something that is already happening right now where, for example, Neuralink, we can all read each other's thoughts. And so judgment, your thoughts are so clear. So everyone is being judged by everyone all the time. And then that's some new level of consciousness, just as an abstract example of that. Yeah.
And what is spirituality to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think about that a lot myself as well. What does it mean? Because whenever I hear, if I describe myself as a spiritual person or them as a spiritual person, I kind of cringe. I think of this I'm spiritual and I've got my beads and I'm a yoga teacher and I've got long hair, and I kind of cringe
it's a trope.
It is a trope, exactly. And I suppose I cringe a little bit about that, but once that's cleared, once I clear the cringe and I recognize that actually I'm in pursuit of something that I believe is very helpful, and I've come to that belief through my life experiences that are, the sufferings that I've gone through, and that's helped refine this. So a spiritual person, I suppose, is someone that spends time connecting with themselves, with the deepest part of themselves, what some might say their spirit, what some might call their inner child, what some might call their deepest form of self, God. There's different names for the same thing through different demographics, cultures, everything. So the people that are connecting with themselves, And I think it's almost ineffable. I don't think there are actually words really to describe what you're connecting to. But you're connecting to something that is, I don't know, it's maybe in harmony with the world around you. It's maybe something that is more peace and unconditional love, allows that to flow out of them. And yeah, I think, you can cringe at the spiritual archetype, the fake spiritual, the spiritual bypassing archetype. But I said to my wife recently that they're still on their spiritual path. This is their process unfolding as they try to connect with themselves, and they're like, they spiritually bypass and they go, okay, now I'm guru whoever, and I've got my beads and my mantras and all that stuff. Like that's still their attempt to connect with themselves a lot of the time, and we are actually holding the space for their process to unfold. And so I still believe that is a spiritual person. They're still trying, and we just all are making mistakes. Otherwise, maybe we just all be enlightened and we would just, I don't know, be super happy and comfortable, or I'm not sure.
So what is the spirit? And why is there so many names for it? Why have communities and groups of people across the entire world and all human existence had beliefs or names or structures around this presence of consciousness that is beyond the physical?
I think they have that. I think the different cultures and different people have the different names for the same thing is because it's a thing, right? I think it's ineffable, it's indescribable. I think almost by trying to describe these things, we take away from them, because putting words on them actually is, it's such a limiting vibration that a word is, to try and capture something that is so maybe permanent and maybe so vibrant, right? So I think they label it with different things because they're all referring to the same thing. And I think, I had a really strong atheist phase where I totally rejected spirituality and religion. And it was a really important phase because I was being put into this system, forced into the system of religion that did not fit what I wanted. And I'm quite a rebellious person, and I don't really like authority. So it really didn't suit me to be a part of that system. Could have been done much more gracefully to teach me a spiritual code, I suppose, in my opinion. And yeah, I feel that, I feel I needed to come back around to that at my own time. And I think I have, and I think I've really stepped into I don't know, I suppose a spiritual person, but just trying to be a better person, at least trying to connect to deeper parts of myself.
And in terms of why we all feel the spirit, there seems to be some sort of link between, we'll call it the energy or the space between the physical and whatever all these nations have tried to name.
Yeah.
There has to be some place in the brain where those two things link, where the brain of physical matter can recognize the presence of something non-physical. Isn't that a bizarre concept to even think about? Because if we can't pinpoint, you have your lungs or kidneys or stomach, whatever, if we can't point, find, extrapolate, jar, bottle up and sell, if we can't find this essence, how is it that we're physically aware it's there when it doesn't occupy the same physical world that we inhabit?
Yeah, I'm not sure, I suppose. I think we potentially we do inhabit. I think we are it. Everything is it. Everything is a part of the universe, and maybe some people could say the universe is God or the Great Spirit, and we are all just little droplets poured out of the jug. We are it, and so maybe it's harder to look at something from the inside in. Maybe outside in is more easier, and so maybe it's more of a, like I said, maybe it's more of a feeling rather than a word that we can try to capture and try to describe. But I also feel then the words have they create an image in our mind, and then that image is easily rejectable. When something like God, for example, I used to be like, no God for me, no, I get stupid, it's for stupid people, and I reject it totally. I reject it to my family, reject it to my community, and I think I didn't understand what I was saying, because I was actually rejecting the authority imposed on me of what I was told to believe in. I wasn't rejecting the universe. I wasn't rejecting existence of something far beyond what my mind can fathom. I wasn't rejecting this feeling that we all know, and these deeper feelings that we have that maybe guide us in the right directions when we can reflect on our past and our lives. And so I think that maybe words are limiting to this, and maybe that's why it's like, my religion's better. No, my religion's better. Maybe there's no religion or community that is better than the other with regards to spirituality or God. Maybe that's just the ego thing, saying something's better than the other. It's just, yeah.
You've traveled a fair bit.
Yeah.
Could you say that there's nations in the world that live in more harmony with the spirit than other nations?
That's a good question. I haven't thought about that too much, I suppose. I suppose most of my time has been in Latin America. I spent close to 2 years there.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, of course. So let me first answer what you're saying about like what their spiritual practices. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
So I think what I've seen with the people that, in my opinion, are the most spiritual or connected to spirit or these deeper feelings of peace and harmony. I'd say they're probably not people that are in different countries. I would say potentially they're people that are more connected with nature. They're away from cities. You know, whenever I feel when I'm traveling through countries and I'm in the cities, I feel like it's an intense place. People are struggling to breathe, for limited resources, and it brings out maybe the worst in us, potentially. Maybe the people that when I've been traveling and I've seen living in the countryside, they feel more at peace to me. They seem like they're living happier, simpler lives, and maybe I could deduce from that they're more connected to what we're referring to as spirit. Yeah.
So rather than a particular place where people are more in line, you think that there's people in line with it all over the world?
Yeah, for sure.
And in all communities, in all corners of the globe, people have made a conscious decision to pursue, whether knowingly or unknowingly, a more harmonized life.
That's it. I just literally think it's harmony with everything that's going on around you.
So, Latin America.
Oh, yeah.
Hit me.
Okay, cool. It's amazing. Sorry, go.
Give it all detail. Okay. Play on, because this is wonderful.
Yeah. Latin America, one of the highlights of my life. Very scary, like a lot of overcoming fear, because a lot of preconceived notions of narcos and cocaine violence and stuff like that. I didn't see any of it. I didn't get in trouble once while I was over there. I didn't feel under threat once while I was over there, outside of just being scared because I was told, be careful when you're in Colombia, big narco state, be careful when you're in Mexico, big narco state. And just incredible people, really friendly overall, really, really friendly. They just want to connect with you. They really don't need a lot, they're really happy just living in wooden shacks. Not everyone, but the majority. I was in the countryside, in the Amazon, in the Andes. And these people, they don't need a lot. They're just happy to be out in nature and just living their life, working simple jobs and not really in need of anything more than that, So it was really eye-opening to see that. And just, the fellow travelers I met, they're all these people that are on the same mission as me, to see the world, see weird and strange and crazy parts of the world. And it was an incredible time in my life, and I feel like it was almost too short. Like I could have easily spent 4 times that. I could have spent 8 years in Latin America. I got to see maybe a tiny fraction of it, And there's a lot more I want to do in the Amazon, and I'd love to spend time in Brazil, in Peru. I got 2 times I wasn't able to get into Peru. First during the coronavirus, detained, sent back to Colombia. Some stupid little rule that they had that I was open to negotiate. Open to interpretation, which I got wrong, and the second time it just wasn't meant to be. So twice I haven't been able to get to Peru, and that is there's a very strong magnetic pull for me to get there. Yeah.
So what countries did you get to?
So we did Mexico for 9 months, we did Guatemala for 6 months, I did a solo in Salvador for 1 month, and then I think in Colombia I spent about 6 months.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And first of all, what brought you out there in the first place?
Well, I was first over there for a big ayahuasca retreat in Colombia. That was back maybe 7 years ago. that was very scary. I was like, oh, like we're not in Cork anymore, you know. But
not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy.
exactly. And you know, I actually had travelled throughout Asia and Australia, New Zealand, and loads of Europe and North America. But kind of Colombia was more scary for me. It was really kind of in the deeper waters of travel, I suppose. You know, you're really more vulnerable. You don't speak the language. It's like, it's certainly not a first world country. Do you know what I mean? So I was amazed by that experience for several reasons. But I just really feel called to go back to the Amazon and just sit with the shamans there. And so that was the main reason I actually went over back to Latin America, was I wanted to go and sit with shamans without having to worry about coming to back to work and to run a business and to all these kind of plates you have to spin here in the Western world or when you're plugged into the system. I wanted to be able to go and just kind of sit and let my life change and learn and let go kind of the system I was plugged into, you know. So that's why I went, and that's I can't say I quite got everything I wanted out of it. There's still so much more. That's why I feel I need to go back. But now, you know, in my life, I really feel that I need to be here to grow deep roots here, to gain a really strong kind of Western financial safety net, to see where I'm going to be property-wise here and in Europe. And I just feel really called to be here right now and just set up what I would say is becoming a man, like being able to stand on my own 2 feet, support my family, being able to have hopefully a family, being able to have a beautiful piece of land that I can farm and have retreats on and wellness retreats and stuff like that. So yeah.
So the very first time you went to Colombia about 7 years ago?
Yeah.
How on earth did you end up on an ayahuasca retreat in Colombia?
Yeah. So there was there was a group that brings Europeans over to Colombia for these ayahuasca trips. So I got involved with this group. I was chatting with them. They seemed like a solid group. They seemed trustworthy. And I said, it just felt like the right thing. Me, my wife, and my dad were like, let's do it.
And your dad?
Yeah.
Ayahuasca?
Yeah. It was really cool.
Colombia?
We were just called for this big adventure, right? We all just felt that we were like, do you want to do it? And everyone was like, yeah, I do want to do it. Do you want to do it? And everyone was like, yeah. So it was just kind of like, okay, well then let's do it.
Let's do it.
You know, 6 months time, like surely we can pull together whatever it costs us, you know, flights and retreat. I think it cost us $2,000 in total, flights and retreat, you know, like we can put that together. If we break that down into whatever, 26 weeks, that's, you know, nothing. That's less than €100 a week to put away, you know, we can do it. So we did it, and it was incredible and very profound, very kind of rattling to my core experience, honestly, very frightening. But it just opened up this world to me in a very kind of explosive way of psychedelic medicine, essentially. So it's also called plant medicine in the West more readily. But I actually prefer the term psychedelic medicine. Plant medicine kind of encompasses...
It's greenwashing. It's to soften the whole idea.
It's also limiting, because there's other psychedelics that are so helpful that it's shown in science and therapy that are changing people's lives. And
that aren't plant-based as well.
That aren't plant-based. So I think we can just, for me, I like to open the umbrella, and that's what I would say.
So how long was that first trip?
It was 2 weeks.
Okay, I can see why you wanted to go back.
Of course. I was working my first big clinical job at the time. I'd been employed, and I was like, I could get to 2 weeks leave, but I couldn't take any more time with that without kind of taking the piss. So. And
so what is ayahuasca?
Yeah, so ayahuasca is it's a tea essentially that you drink, and it's generally prepared by a spiritual practitioner, a shaman, someone who is really into this type of work and into maybe helping people make deeper changes, and maybe we could call it healing. So physical, emotional ailments, connections in your life. Some people like to do it to help them connect with nature deeper, or even to what Jung might call the collective unconscious, or the ethereal realm, you know. So you're connecting to all these different things. Astral plane, some might say. Exactly. There's different names for this really complicated thing that's kind of hard to name. So it's made of 2 plants. 2 plants are mixed together. They're boiled together overnight, and the shaman is generally standing around these plants praying and you know, this can sound really strange if you're like very Western and societally based.
Irish people get on their knees and put weird wafer bread in their mouth.
Exactly.
Random men.
Exactly.
So don't worry.
What helps me understand this is like once I started hearing about quantum entanglement and how like everything is connected, and that even like the words, the vibrations that pass through water change the shape of water into beautiful geometries, or if you like swear at water, it starts to change its shape into like stuff that resembles, I think, cancer, and like
really,
it's really cool if you look into like
where's a sink?
Yeah.
We gotta test this one.
Yeah. But you'll see it if you pass it through water or sand. You'll see the videos, and it creates beautiful shapes past certain frequencies. And maybe even as ice freezes, you zoom in at a microscope, you start to see beautiful what's called sacred geometries, like beautiful shapes. Yeah. Versus, I think when you like just play something very unpleasant, like that has the intention of something really cruel in it, it also creates these kind of these shapes that create aversion, you know. So yeah, they'll be singing around it, and they'll be blessing it as they make it overnight, and then it's ready, and you can have 30 doses out of one overnight sitting from the cauldron.
And what does one expect when they take a dose?
So it can range, you know. There's a lighter version of it if you take a small amount. If you probably everyone in Ireland can relate to alcohol. You take 1 pint, you're still in control. You know, you're still fully in, no matter who it is. If they drank 1 pint, I'm not sure what the legal drinking thing is at the moment, because I actually don't really drink that much. But I think, you know, 1 pint, you can still drive the car. You know, just like you would have the skills to do it pretty safely. Sorry, if it's a half pint, then we'll just call it a half pint. But yeah. Same with ayahuasca. If you drunk a small amount of it, you'll feel the effects of it. Yeah, maybe the saturation will turn up, and maybe you'll start to think maybe more abstractly, not out of your mind, but you'll just start to think different thoughts, and you might feel the urge to just start to stretch out your body a little bit. You go, oh, I'm really holding a lot of tension in my back here. Where's this coming from? And then you might start to think of where it's coming. So just little things like that you might start to notice. Generally quite pleasant. But as you go deeper into it, same with alcohol, the more you drink, the less control you have and the more control it takes. Same with ayahuasca, it will take more control. So I always think the first glass you drink, you're in control, you're driving a car. The second glass you drink, the medicine's driving a car. Yeah, so you're saying, okay, whatever this medicine is here, like I'm going to, and you will have to surrender to it. You'll have no choice. It will take you and bring you to the ground, and maybe you'll go through heaven and you'll feel extreme super consciousness and a type of ecstasy, and you'll understand everything in life, and maybe you'll go through hell and you'll experience some of the darkest things that you could ever imagine experience. And so it can go, there's a spectrum that you can fall on there of intensities.
And what dictates whether you go through heaven or hell?
That's a good question. I think there's an element of set and setting in it. So if you take it in a nightclub that's full of like really like kind of heinous criminal people that don't give a fuck about anything but destruction, I think you're really going to feel that in the air. You're going to feel bad. If you take it at a concert or something, you'd probably feel like, oh God, I'm surrounded by all these people. The energy is so intense. But I think if you take it in a safer place with someone that you feel safe with, then it can be like the shaman, for example. You have a much more likely chance of having a safer and maybe more enjoyable, even if it's not enjoyable in the moment, enjoyable in hindsight experience. Right? Whereas if you take it in not good environments, even if it's a bad experience at the time, in hindsight, it might also be a bad experience. Yeah. So the energy of the setting really dictates how it's going to be, but also what will happen. You know, what will be bubbling under the surface in this chapter of your life will come forward. You know, it's like a dream. What will dictate your dream? Maybe you can influence it with some herbs that you eat, but if it's a good or bad dream, it can be strong or gentle, and you'll just go through it and experience it, and maybe you learn from your dream. You know, same with these processes with the medicine.
See, that's fascinating, because I was actually on an ayahuasca retreat at one point, and Rape, and Bufo and ayahuasca, and I drank the ayahuasca, and it tastes vile. It's a really nasty taste. And I suppose it's kind of like things like MD and stuff, you know. Once you've had enough MD, just the smell of it was enough to turn the stomach. Your body goes, no, we're not going through this again. We're not doing it. Yeah. So I imagine the taste of ayahuasca probably begins to line up along those lines. But
yeah, for sure. If I even watch someone drink it, I feel it. I go, whoa, don't look. And another part of me is like, no, look at it, man. Look at it. Look at them. Yeah, embrace it. Like, this is a part of it. Like, just absorb it, you know.
Well, what was fascinating to me was that, like, so as people begin to feel the effects, as you said, there's a spectrum on it. Yeah. Now you get sick, you get violently ill for 20 minutes or so, and they like to call that purging. That's a bullshit word, man. Purging. Okay. You're vomiting because you drank plant root. You know, it's okay. That's the okay of a man completely disagrees with somebody.
Yeah, for sure.
But so that happens, and so there's about 30 people in the room, which I thought was a little bit too much for the setting, and it was a strange setting.
Yeah.
It was a strange setting. It was, and I found it very fascinating. So there was the full spectrum was visible, from like one woman's descent into like actual hell, and she had some very bad traumas that came through in her experience, and she relived them, all the way up to like people singing and dancing and really embracing it. And I had a very, very strange, very peaceful experience on it. And for me, it actually had a very profound theological tilt to it, because one of the things that, if you're religiously inclined, and I don't mean as in like, I go to church, I mean as in like you've dived into what does it mean to have a God? What is a divine entity? What is it to be something of a power that can bring order into chaos, can create the world and everything in it? What, like when you actually envision what environment that being would occupy, you come to a very, almost like earlier when we were talking that you said you couldn't put a word on what the spirit was, because that would almost contain it. Similar is that when you allow your imagination to start wandering through the concept of divine being, there's no longer words that can describe what's there. And you can't, this is why like people, especially people who've never done psychedelics, when you try and explain to them, you know, like someone who's a skeptic is like, oh, did you see a pink elephant or a magic dragon or some other pop reference to people who take acid and lie in a field. Yeah. And so it's almost not, don't cast your pearls before swine. It's almost not even worth explaining to people who have no interest in it. But when I went in, because I dived deep into psychedelics before and things that have psychoactive substances, and combining that with deep moments of imagination on the divine being and the divine spectrum, the divine world. When I entered whatever it is, wherever it is that ayahuasca brings you, and I wonder, this ties in with like, why is it that we have a non-physical emotion or energy or something in it that connects and interacts with the physical world? Ayahuasca and psychoactive substances, I believe, have the ability to elevate your consciousness either into the world where these energies, whether they originate or not, but they certainly exist and thrive and interact in this particular realm. And so say for ayahuasca, when you begin to sort of move into that plane, it very much felt like a location. And I felt like everyone in that room was, if not in the same plane, was certainly having a variation of it that didn't differ much from what I was seeing. So in the room, you've got all these people going through all these very powerful moments in their lives, and so there's a lot of noise. So you have like from people screaming to people like laughing and people singing and playing guitar, and then you've got the people facilitating the festival, facilitating the experience, have cymbals and clingy-clangies and diddling. And so there's a lot of auditory things going on as well. And your eyes are closed, and you're taken into this place, and the energy from the room was in the location where I was in my head. And I was aware of silhouettes and movement, and I was aware of an existence that I was witnessing, not manifesting. I had gotten the chance to look in, like going scuba diving. The world underneath the water is always there. But when you're walking around here, you don't even think about it. And then you go down to that, you enter the next realm, and you go, oh my goodness, this is incredible. Look at this, look at the space, look at the fish, look at the rocks. This is nuts. This is here. What? You just can't see it. Like I can go 2 inches up, be out of this water, and not be able to see it, and go 2 inches down and see it all. So it was like one of those moments you enter this place where it's like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And I was deep at peace, but I was very much aware of people who were not at peace all around me. And I began to, there was a silhouette that was very focused. It was very clear. It wasn't moving and interacting with everything else. And it had an energy, it had a presence to it. And I remember it speaking to me as, do you know why all these people are freaking out? I didn't say freaking out, I'm paraphrasing what I think my memory had. And I said, first of all I said, do you know who I am? And I was like, you're God, you're the divine, you're the thing. And there was a confirmation in its recognition of what I'd said. And then it asked, do you know why all these people are freaking out? I said, is it because they don't know you? they've never interacted with you before.
Yeah.
And I said, yes.
Yeah.
And I went, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, this is something. I don't know what, but it's something.
Yeah.
And it's real. And it's not just just a collaboration of the imagination and psychoactive chemicals.
Yeah.
It's something more than that.
Yeah.
What do you make of all that?
Yeah, that's perfect. So there's a few different things to chop up here, right? And so there's an address. So like, I've known you since you were a little boy. Yeah, I'm best friends with your older brother, and now I consider myself best friends with you. And I've been really enjoying cultivating a relationship over the last few years.
100%.
And yeah, it's such a pleasure, mate. So I know you're a very spiritual person. You're like deeply
spiritual.
Excuse me.
God.
You're God?
I'm not God. No, that came out wrong.
Nice to meet you.
I believe in God.
For sure. So sorry, if whatever way it is, you're describing it. You're deeply involved in that. You have a very strong moral compass, and I've seen you like really do the right things, even if you didn't want to. You know, and I really admire that, and I actually think you owe a lot of credit to your parents for the.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, but you also owe a lot of credit to yourself because you've done this hard thing to make yourself into this man, right? So I think you were probably feeling that in this experience that you had, that you were feeling, yes, I'm not afraid of this experience because I have nothing to be afraid of. I trust in this great thing that I'm a part of, and there's a deeper peace that I think that it gives you. And that's also a little bit dangerous because you can get caught up with, in that position, you can get caught up with, I believe, that these people are different to me and I maybe have my shit together and they don't, when what it actually can also be is it's your turn on the merry-go-round to feel peace and harmony with the universe around you, and it's their turn on the merry-go-round to have very deeply somatic, so in the body, cathartic, releasing of energy experiences. Maybe these people were just holding on to this scream of like how scary it is to be alive and be progressing in life, and it was just time for that to come out. The bubbles had risen to the surface and it was just out, you know. So there's two different ways of looking at that, you know. And I would say both are accurate. You know, I think you do have a deep sense of peace.
I better not get back on that merry-go-round. So, but it sounds like
because if you do,
the other side's coming.
It'll be your turn at some stage, you know. And those experiences are very humbling because you know, I've had those experiences in the Amazon in particular. I'm like, I'm the jungle boy. I'm a man. I'm banging my chest with my top off outside in the jungle. I'm connecting with the nature around me, and I'm feeling super masculine and super in my power, and like Tarzan. I know, exactly, that's what I'm feeling like. And then I have the next night where I'm lying on the ground, vomiting on myself, screaming, begging for the process to stop, and the shaman is saying, no, it can't be stopped, you have to go through this is a part of your process. So both things can exist.
Okay. Yeah, we'll stay off that merry-go-round. So so tell us, because the Amazon's been mentioned a couple of times.
Sure.
Where does the Amazon fit into all this?
Yeah, so the Amazon is the home of ayahuasca, essentially. Now, ayahuasca is all over the world now. Anywhere there's a jungle or tropical temperature, people are growing it. Australia, Thailand, Bali, it's everywhere now, you know.
So you can actually cultivate it as a crop, essentially?
Yep, exactly. In tropical climates, it can be cultivated
easily. And do you know
easily.
what two plants it is?
It's the Mimosa hostilis, I believe, and the Baniscapi. So Baniscapi is the ayahuasca vine, known as the vine of the dead. And Mimosa hostilis actually contains the substance of DMT, which is known as the God molecule, because it gives you this ineffable experience of, you know, shattering this reality where you are. And yeah, it's ineffable. You can't describe it.
And so when you you said it's a vine. So is it are you talking like an ivy?
Yeah, and a vine, exactly, mixed with a leaf. And the vine and a bunch of these leaves, they're boiled down over 24 hours.
The leaves contain the DMT. The vine contains what?
The vine contains something that inhibits your stomach from quickly metabolizing the DMT. So now the DMT can work in you while this is blocking out your enzymes, essentially.
Yeah. Okay, that makes perfect sense. Wow, how did they figure that out?
That's the $1 million question. So
how far back does ayahuasca go?
We don't know. I think it's dated thousands of years anyway. You know, so this is the fascinating thing with all the, I will just throw out there, millions, probably tens of millions, maybe even hundreds of millions of plants in the Amazon. They've managed to bring these two plants together in a certain way that need to be boiled down to create this substance that gives, some would say, a little, maybe a tool in the toolbox towards becoming enlightened, becoming in harmony with the world around you, becoming a better person. Maybe I've also seen it do bad things with people. You know, I've seen people become kind of monstrous as they go through these processes over long periods of time.
Monstrous, sorry, in which way?
In just being what seems to me like they're corrupted by darker parts of themselves, such as lust for money, lust for control over people. There's also this really unfortunate, it's actually everywhere. I've heard of it a lot in the Amazon, but it's actually in the Western world's use of it. In as far as I've heard, there's like people are in these very vulnerable positions. You know, they're not in control of their physical bodies, and so there is sexual abuse that it's documented. If you type in ayahuasca sexual abuse, you'll find loads of threads about it. So there's a darker underbelly to this. It's not the answer to enlightenment. It is a tool, and the screw can can wheel a screw in, and it can also you can hurt someone with it. Exactly, you know.
And do you see much savior complexes come about from like shaman people, as in that they found this key, but this they control the access point?
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I really think it's a tool. And I don't really know who regulates this. I don't know, is it right to regulate it? Like, is it right to regulate religion? Is it right to regulate meditation? Is it right to regulate these things that are each person's undertaking, you know, to go to their new level that they want to try and achieve? You know, there's risks to all of these processes. So yeah, I've seen it turn dark, and I suppose myself and my wife and two of my very close friends, we're planting a flag actually around psychedelic medicine, where I'm going back to college next year to study psychotherapy, and I am studying psychotherapy so I can give this therapy properly to people, and so I can create an academic foundation that's I have studied the craft of psychotherapy. I'm not just going through my own life experience. I've studied this craft of psychotherapy. My wife is a psychologist and works daily with people from all over the world. She specializes in integrating people from these really difficult experiences. And my other two friends, we've just been through so much together in this world, traveling around the world, taking part in these retreats, seeing the different archetypes of facilitator, shaman, participant that arise and what the problems are. There are like many flags that are popping up. You know, we've got MAPS in the US for psychedelic science. We've got
MAPS now. What's that now? Because there's
I think it's the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Science.
Also minor attracted persons.
No, it's not that.
Yeah, that's them trying to brand pedophilia, something that's okay.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Yeah, okay. I had to clarify that one now.
For sure. No worries there. So there's there's MAPS over there. There's a Tira Tan, who is a famous practitioner who is essentially making a point for people who want the best practice to be safe doing this work to rally around. She's got psychologists, she's got yogis, she's got psychiatrists, she's got all the different elements that are involved with what I'll just call spiritual wellness, involved in how do we make this safe. It's happening all over the world. How do we do harm reduction with this? Because like in the 60s when this LSD revolution happened and people are going, no, I don't want to be a part of this system that is just taking so much from me and not giving me anything. I'm not free. I'm not able to express myself the way I want to. I need to talk this certain way and dress this certain way. And they, Woodstock, I just want to have sex in the mud and listen to Jimi Hendrix and just say, fuck the system. It's such a violent explosion of freedom that society has to compress down back on top of it and wipe out psychedelics. This is dangerous for society. So, you know, for me and my wife, we just want to plant the flag here and be like, we want to do this in the safest way because we truly believe in this as a tool to heal people, to change mankind for the better. And it's bursting out of us, this vocation, you know. I'm going to come back to the Amazon, but I want to follow through something you mentioned there. Go for it, mate.
I have noticed that what I call cannabis resistance in Ireland.
Yeah.
So Ireland is at the moment, unfortunately, an extremely progressive country for a lot of reasons that I personally dislike.
Sure.
But one thing they've been very, very lethargic on is drug understanding and drug decriminalization, and then obviously drug legalization. And so there was a citizens assembly last year, the year before, and the topic of decriminalization came up, and like citizens assembly, it is a nice way of taking public opinion into how much of it actually resonates in the government. I have flipping no idea, and whatever. But what was interesting is that the language around cannabis in particular is not one that I was expecting would have had. The conversation took an angle that I thought we were past.
Yeah.
So it was still a very old
Yeah.
Irish mentality towards
I
cannabis.
hear you.
And I thought, this is mad. Like when there's like
This was echoed in the US recently around MDMA. It was like barred as a therapeutic substance to be used. I can't remember, was it federally or some county? And people were in the psychedelic community were shocked. They were like, I thought we were past this. We're not.
So the thing was is that if we're not past it,
Yeah.
and so we have all these countries and states in America and sectors in the EU,
Thailand,
like great example, that have altered their perspective on how you manage drugs. Because look, here, at the end of the day, the horse is bolted. There's some delusional people still in police organizations and drug enforcement organizations that think they're fighting the war on drugs, and they're absolutely not. They're just devastating communities. They're locking up people that have all sorts of reasons for why they got involved in drugs in the first place. And meanwhile, $1 billion are still floating back up the stream to the boys who run the system.
Sure.
And they try and blame the low man at the bottom. Your 25 bag you bought a gram of cannabis for is feeding narco debts in Colombia. And it's like, well, I'm afraid you're actually wrong there. Like, that's the equivalent of me saying that my breathing carbon dioxide out is harming the icebergs in, where are they, Antarctica, whatever. And like, logically and technically, I hear your argument because the carbon dioxide is being attributed to global warming, and I'm producing carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
But in actuality, when you try and look at that argument, it's completely ridiculous. So it's the same with the 25 bag on a local street level.
Okay.
And why is it, do you think, that people are still so restricted? Now, you touched on it there a minute ago, where they realize that that explosion of expression needs to be contained, because otherwise people won't work the stupid jobs that they hate. They won't partake in the social systems that they think no longer applies to them. Aside from that, why else would it be that when countries can look at other countries and see success in these fresh ways of looking at drugs, why is it that we're still so staunch in, I don't want to say archaic beliefs, but certainly uninformed beliefs?
Yeah, I hear you, brother. It's a really good question. It's really important for what myself and my wife are trying to achieve here in the next 10 years, I suppose, is so obviously from our point of view, we've gone through as young men this kind of, I suppose, life where we've had all these experiences where we've felt how important these psychedelic experiences have been to opening us up in different ways, for connecting with people, for even, you mentioned your ayahuasca, you felt like you had access to divinity in those moments, and we've experienced that, but, we have to then consider the older generations that it's beaten into their DNA that this is even potentially satanic from a hardcore Christian point of view, is any type of drug, right? So I just, for anyone listening to the podcast, I would like to say Dr. Carl Hart, his work is fantastic. He's had some really good podcasts with Rogan, and I've actually bought his book and read it, and it just actually opened up a new part of my mind. It was really nice to have access to this.
What's the book?
So it's I believe it's called Drug Use for Responsible Adults, but it's not a guide. It's actually just his take on how we are where we are today and our relationship with substances. And I think one of the big points that we can help shift this perspective from the older generation to our newer generation, that is probably just more liberal and progressive, bad ways and good ways, is the science. And one of the big things is when we see how damaging the science says alcohol is compared to anything, including heroin, crack, it is number one. It is the most damaging thing we take recreationally as a collective. And it's embedded in our society with advertising young, beautiful people smiling and drinking alcohol and enjoying themselves and starting to be in environments that are more sexually intimate, like nightclubs, and searching out mates and things like that. Alcohol, enjoying beautiful weather, alcohol, enjoying your sports events, alcohol. And I think that has actually brainwashed us. And I think we're all under this delusion that, alcohol is safe. And sure, it's the devil we know versus the devil we don't know. But once we start to understand on just the attributes of how damaging each of these substances are to us, and how much each one contributes to violence, domestic violence, social violence, depression, long-term chronic disease, of multiple organs in the body, you know. Alcohol is the winner. And so for me, it seems like madness that once this becomes clear with the science and it comes out more and more, I think this is why more 0% are coming out now of beers and alcohols, because these companies, they can see the future, you know, they have the best minds working on this. They're billion-dollar companies.
Well, I'd say the 0% is on the back of the inclusivity madness that's going on.
Okay, well, my dad's take on it is that they because they can see this coming, they know alcohol is on the way down because people are starting to not drink. I mean, a lot of my friends just don't even drink anymore. It's not like I'm not drinking because I'm trying to be a good athlete or a good businessman. We're just like it's garbage, man. Like, if you want to have a bit of fun every few months and have a glass of wine, like, fair enough. But I have a few friends that were just like, man, it's absolute garbage. Like, it's literally taking from you and giving you just a little brief moment, and you have to pay it back so with so much interest, you know. If you want to get anything done like of value, I would say like alcohol is one of the big things that you should certainly cut back on. And
my brother had an interesting take. He reckoned that, so like, why, for example, can we drink as much alcohol and it's got no social, other than the tilt towards he's becoming an alcoholic. Outside of that, going for pints during the week is not socially condemned at all. But if you were to say, I can't wait to go home and smoke a joint, you get that look.
Yeah.
And he reckons it's because Irish people, to be fair to them, have a deep sense of like hard work ethic. And cannabis is so associated with laziness and losers and dole heads and boys that don't have jobs.
Yeah.
That there's a resistance within Irish people towards the idea of what they think cannabis represents. And I thought that was an interesting take because, like, when you talk about cannabis here in this country, when you talk about cannabis in, say, Amsterdam, you're thinking sitting by the canal, beautiful day, having a deep conversation about the meaning of life. But when you think about cannabis in an Irish setting, you're thinking unemployed, dole head, sitting in his mother's living room, smoking joints at 12 o'clock on a Tuesday. Yeah. And so that image is actually quite... Yeah. That image would have to be broken down.
For sure.
And then there's the question then of, if there's a cultural influence on how drugs and alcohol get used, are Irish people suited to drugs such as cannabis?
Okay, that's a really good point. I never thought of that, because then you think of some indigenous groups, particularly Asia or in
America,
Australia.
The Indians with the alcohol,
they
destroyed them.
Exactly, yeah. So that's actually a really good point that I didn't consider. And I suppose my take on this would be that, I mean, if you're contributing to society and you're upholding society, you're paying taxes, you feel you're contributing, you're not just taking, then I feel that we should have the right to put into our bodies what we feel is going to... Yeah, I don't even think we need to say it needs to help us. You know, we can put painkillers in, it takes the pain away, it really hurts our body. We can take alcohol in, it takes the pain away, it really hurts our body, right? There's a bunch of things that we are free to do. And I think what the most important thing with these things like cannabis, for us to make a choice, I don't think the choice should be made for us by any authority. Like I said, I have a bit of a thing against authority, but I think education is the key here. You know, with alcohol, we are beginning to be so educated by it. Even our social media is probably, a lot of it is, you know, we have Hubermen on there being like guys, alcohol is really not that good for you. It's quite bad, you know. And I just feel like that it's, the education is quite strong around that. I think there's almost no education around weed, marijuana. And I think if we had that education, that would be a really good place to start. Yeah, adults should be able, like, abortions are legal in a lot of the Western world. Like, it's informed consent. You know, we're informed consent to drink alcohol. Maybe we should have informed consent to smoke weed if that's your thing, or to drink ayahuasca if that's your thing. And you know, with alcohol, there are going to be people that, as much education as you give them, there's going to be problems. They're going to drive their car, they're going to fall, they're going to fight, and maybe those things will likely happen with other substances as well. But I still think we should have the choice ourselves, and I still think that if alcohol is one of the most harmful recreational substances to put into your body, then if that's allowed, then maybe other things should be allowed. So yeah, education would be my answer to that.
And it's interesting that no matter what, like, whenever cultures have tried to prohibition, for example, in America, or any like Puritan-based cultures, or like in the Philippines, the bloodletting that's been taking place in the war on drugs. It's always fascinating to me that no matter when mankind has tried to stamp out whatever recreational psychoactive substances are heavily relied on,
Yeah.
the populace just rebels against it, and mankind has, for all of its history, gone out of its way to get off its head.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, how is it out of millions of plants in the Amazon,
Yeah.
some mad fella somehow concocted this brew of the gods?
Yeah.
What was he doing?
Yeah.
Or another fun question: what was the first person who milked a cow doing?
Sure, yeah, I hear you. I'm sure they saw the baby drinking it first, so...
Maybe, you'd hope so.
I'd hope so, for sure. So I actually think that the psychedelic experience, and I don't mean taking psychedelic substances, psyche is the mind, delic means changing. And I think these are so fundamentally important to our growth as humans. So whether it's going for a long distance run that shatters your mind, whether it's going out to the nightclub for the first time and getting drunk and being like, whoa, that was hopefully amazing. Even if it wasn't amazing, it's still a mind changing experience. Whether it's going traveling to change your mind. I think these are such important formative parts of our lives, and I think we should have the choice if we want to do a 5-day run, you know, a 500 miler somewhere. Like someone just did 4 days with no food. I think he ran like 450 miles with no food. I think it was something crazy like that. And certainly one guy did I think double marathons every day with no food. And it's their choice to have these mind-changing experiences. I think alcohol, you could call it psychedelic in the fact that it will change how you think about the world around you and yourself. And I think that is psychedelic. Psychedelic is not a substance. Psychedelic is a state of mind that is brought on. There's different tools to do it. And so because we understand this, we have different rites of passage throughout the world to become men, to become families, to be initiated into our jobs, such as dancing, such as running, such as the ceremonies that we engage in, and the even in, you know, a lot of the world's psychedelic medicine. So the substances are actually a big part of the culture, and they're a really big part of this coming of age, a part of this changing your mind, so maybe you can be less harsh, less violent, more harsh. I don't know what it is that you need in your life, but I think psychedelic experiences are extremely important, and we recognize it on an unconscious level, and that's why they are ubiquitous.
So you go to Colombia, you have a 2-week stint over there,
Yeah.
and you come back here to the world of the grey. And how long then between that return and you saying, I'm going back and I'm doing it for longer?
Yeah, it was. I left in September, so I came back in November and I left in September.
The following September.
Yeah.
And like, how quickly did that idea to return and to do an extended period? How long did it take for that idea to manifest itself?
I think while I was over there, I knew it was something.
coming
Yeah, I
back.
met a guy while I was over there. He had been backpacking with his little surfboard. He'd spent 6 months backpacking through. He was just hanging out with the locals. He was a lad from Norway. And he came to drink the medicine with us one night, the ayahuasca, the yahe they call it. And he came
say
in.
that again?
Yahe. They call it
Yahe.
in Colombia yahe.
Yahe.
Yeah. And it's the same brew essentially. And so he came in and he was speaking Spanish with the locals. He's like, I'll join you guys for the night if that's all cool. I was like, whoa, who is this man coming in with his little surfboard in the jungle? And he's like wanting to join randomers on a retreat with the ayahuasca. And I was like, I want to be that person. I want to be the person who spent months traveling through Latin America, who's clearly just so hardened from it and adapted to it, and is like really like open to these new experiences and adventures. And for me, because I was so astounded by ayahuasca, I wanted that to be a very big part of my journey, or at least working with shamans in some type of psychedelic medicine capacity.
So you start putting together a plan as soon as you're back that you're going.
Certainly
returning.
unconsciously, it was
Yeah.
it was magnetism, like the way I have this magnetism now to go back over there. It was magnetism, and then the pieces were just put together as
And so
time passed.
what sort of itinerary did you put together?
Where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it kind of happened randomly because it happened during the coronavirus. The coronavirus happened in March.
Okay.
So I came in November. I came back from Colombia first.
Yeah.
Then March is the coronavirus. Then
Yeah.
September I leave to Latin America. So I'd been fired from my job, which was very upsetting for me at the time. And I'd just been having some difficulties. I'm sure everyone kind of had this difficulty during the coronavirus. That was like, that was kind of a nice time. Sometimes were great, we had all this freedom and time to ourselves. There's other times that freedom brought up some darker things for us. So it was kind of a dark time for me as well. And so because our trip to Colombia, where I was going to go over there to the Amazon and spend the time there, was cancelled, I just said, F it, I'm just going to go to Mexico and go and work with a shaman over there that I'd seen was kind of prolific. And I said, yeah, I'll go over there and start doing some work with him. And so I went. I spent 2 months over there, and then I had a really hard time. Actually, I had some very hard experiences that meant that I needed to come home and really settle for a few months. A very difficult chapter in my life. And then once I had kind of got back on my feet, I went back over there, and I spent then probably a year and 7 or 8 months with that.
Wow, okay, so there's actually 3 instances of coming and going.
There is, yeah.
Okay, so the second time you went back to Mexico for 2 months working alongside a shaman?
Yeah.
With the goal of one day becoming one, or just to have the experience near him?
Yeah, I suppose both. You know, I was fascinated by the medicine that I was working with was called Bufo alvarius. It's a toad. So I really wanted to go and study this experience, because I'd had that experience, and it changed my life. I could not believe it. And so I thought, well, now I have this free time. I have my savings. Let's just go over there. Like, this prolific guy, I'll go over and work with him, and I'll just learn. I'll just be humble and go learn. And so, I would like to pass that experience on to other people, for sure. And so that's where I went, and I went through 2 months of being over there. And
on your own?
On my own, yeah. And it was a very challenging time in my life at the time. So there was a lot of, I suppose, interpersonal dynamics in my life around my family and friends that were kind of up in the air a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so because they were really not strong, I felt actually very weak while I was over there. I needed to come back and settle and be safe, essentially, just be in a place where I could really rest and gather myself for what I wanted to do. Yeah.
And so how long then did you have to come back and rest for? How long was that period?
I spent 2 months back at home. Yeah.
And then you went
Christmas
again.
And then I went back to Colombia.
And
then.
do you feel that 2 months back at home did you good?
Yeah, it was really important for me to go, man. I really needed to go home. It wasn't. I didn't feel well over in Latin America. I felt like I needed to be home, and I needed to be in a safe place where I could just rest.
And are we talking now about the same sort of non-physical energy that we started this conversation with? That there was, when you said follow the feeling, you're talking about you're checking in with, there was something in you that was disquieted.
Yeah, for sure. In fact, I was gaining physical symptoms from it. I was feeling like, well, first of all, I was feeling very like I did not want to be around people anymore. I just wanted to be on my own. And then when I was on my own, I was like, I'm not anywhere where I can really get good solitude here, because I'm kind of, I need to be around loads of people. And I started to feel like very weak. I started to get very tired when I would be out walking. I even felt like I was maybe starting to like lose strength a little bit while I was walking around. And I just felt like I feel very unwell physically, mentally. I need to be away. I need to go back home and just be rest.
Interesting, because that's a deep core principle to a lot of psychotherapy, particularly Freud and Jung would lean very heavily into the fact that like the neuroses that most people deal with are suppression of something in their psychic, and then the next thing they start manifesting physical symptoms.
For sure.
And so you actually got a taste of that as well.
Oh, I'm very familiar with that line of work. And there's Mate and I believe Vander Kolk is his name, 2 doctors.
Gabor Mate, is it?
Gabor Mate, and I think his name is Bessel Vander Kolk. They would both say the same thing. Our emotional symptoms, our unchecked, unconscious like communications, if they're not listened to, will start to begin to manifest in physical symptoms.
I remember you once told me that if you ignore your problems, they go down into the basement of your mind and lift weights.
I love that quote. Kieran O'Regan, fantastic mind.
Kieran!
Yeah. You did a podcast with him.
Kieran's a great dude. I've been on to him now to try and get another one. Yeah. Kieran. And but he's busy, man. He's writing prolifically. Are you on his email list?
Yeah.
Dude.
Great reads.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh my goodness now. That man sees things.
Yeah, he's
fantastic.
So
perceptive in the way he puts it together, and like it reads so well, and it's so engaging, and
he's dedicated to the craft. That is his artistic expression is the pen and paper.
And he's got gripped and stuff for publishing his articles, and
of course.
Like I'm glad to see he's getting recognition for the work he's putting in, because I know from my own like creative endeavors, like that to put together and produce an actual article, never mind a series of them for a newsletter, is brutal.
Yeah.
It's brutal on the mind, it can be brutal on the body, it's extremely taxing as well, because a lot of the times you've really got to delve into topics, and people say like they understand this topic or that topic, but they actually haven't. And what it takes to actually understand a topic means like some really deep, very difficult work, because you've got to look into it, an article or a topic or a book or whatever, and to extrapolate key principle from that is very, very difficult. And so for the way Kieran's able to produce his writings, nearly every sentence has a deep, well-crafted message behind it.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about potentially multiple pages of a newsletter, you're talking about hours and hours and hours and hours of deep thinking, reading, contemplating, probably discussing with other people.
Yeah.
Has gone in behind the scenes to produce this little page.
Yeah.
And yet, like, if I looked up his email address on my things, I could scroll through all the articles he's produced. I haven't even read them all. I can't even read them all. But it's, just when you mentioned him there.
He is just a bit on Kieran. He's absolutely fantastic in so many ways. So not only is he like dedicated himself to writing and philosophy, he's also a fantastic strength coach, very deep in that craft, equally as deep in the craft of strength coaching as well. He's also a very successful, I believe, amateur kickboxer, and had quite a few amateur fights and went very deep into that as well. So he is for me, he's like the warrior in the garden. You know, he's learning the sword and the pen. And
that was a key principle for like ancient Japanese warriors and for various people, that you were expected to be an intellect as well as a warrior.
Yeah, it's for me that's a very embodied man. You know, is like combining both the artistry and the ability to be strong and the ability to defend yourself.
And I literally think that actually makes up the best family man you can possibly create as well.
I totally agree.
You have to be able to love and kiss your daughter at the same time fend off the wolves.
Yeah.
And I think that like there's a big issue in a lot of families and in culture in general today, where like we've heard people say there's a crisis in masculinity and stuff, but there's a crisis in femininity too. There's just crises everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of men don't understand that it's actually totally not just okay, but admirable to be able to switch between your various emotions. And some people maybe feel that's a bit two-faced or whatever, but you shouldn't talk to your wife the same way you talk to your friends, and you shouldn't talk to your friends the same way you talk to like a creep that's hitting on your family or whatever. Like, you have to be able to move through the plane of emotions and personalities and to be able to utilize each one of them as accurately as you possibly can.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. For me, this is like a big journey I'm on, becoming an embodied man. What does that mean? I think it's different for each person. You know, but for me, it does mean to be a strong person that is able to defend my family, that is able to financially provide and emotionally provide for my family.
So this is actually, I've been asking people this question about. This is fun. Yeah. What is a Woman? It was a podcast, a documentary made, right? I do. Matt Walsh produced it. Excellent podcast. Excellent documentary. Yeah. Very entertaining. But I'm waiting. There's an absence of the clearly obvious documentary of what is a man.
Yeah.
Right?
Nice.
So, Luke McGrane, what is a man?
Oh, that's a good question, man. And like I said, I think outside of the obvious, I think it can be a little bit different for each person.
What's obvious?
You know? The obvious, I would just say the like XXXY obvious, you know. Obviously there's different groups. People would say, yeah, but if you're born a man, not a man any longer right now, you know. I don't want to probably get into nitty gritty of that. So I would say that's the obvious biological sense, you know. I'd say like for me and for you, there's probably slight differences in what we would say is the full Daddy Tim and Daddy Luke, you know. So to become exactly. So
I love you, Daddy.
Sorry, exactly. I know you do. So to become a Daddy Tim, you probably have a checklist of things that you would want to achieve first. Like you want to be able to defend your family. You're a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, I believe, right? Yeah. You want to feel strong, that you can actually physically protect them and do the manual things around the house. You're strong and physically there, you know. You want to be able to be emotionally vulnerable with them so they can feel the gentleness and the softness of you.
And I think that's where a lot of men struggle.
For sure.
Yes,
the chiseled hard masculinity.
Yeah. And then the flip side of that is a weak, pathetic man who's completely incapable of doing anything physical or threatening. Yeah. And it's that's exactly where there's an issue with combining the two identities. Yeah. But like, see, here's the thing. Even if I was to say to you again, what is a man, but make it succinct, are you able to do it? Like
my attempt at succinct, what is a man, will be a man is someone who can protect their family and who can love their family.
In equal amounts.
In equal amounts, yeah. And protect, I think a part of protect is be able to financially provide for them, their family. and to be able to choose to do the right thing. Strong moral compass, follow virtues.
And why is it then we have so many men that have decided not to pursue their own development? How did we come to the fact that people say there's a crisis of masculinity?
Yeah. I'm not sure. It's an interesting time to be alive, I suppose. There's so many people, so many neo-cultures spawning here with the rise of social media. We can connect with everyone on the planet. There's so many new types of fame and ways of making money. It's a more complicated time. There's more variables in play, right? And how did we get there? I'm really not sure. Maybe it's a constant thing. Maybe every society always has and always will say, you're not being manly enough. Maybe sometimes that was you need to like come and fight in the battle with us. And maybe sometimes that was you need to spend more time in your poetry and creating. You know, maybe the Greeks were more into their like expressiveness, things like that. Just take those examples. So I think it's always going to be different, and the struggle will probably be always there, and the struggle that we all feel inside of ourselves is probably happening all around the world with everyone. And you might say to be a man is that, but there's also that women are going through their own struggle of to be a woman, to be a fully embodied woman, not just this trans movement that is happening at the moment of what is a woman, but actually to become an embodied woman, an embodied adult maybe. I think that they can be quite similar.
Could we dare to ask the question of two men? Could we say, what is a woman?
Oh, yeah.
Are we allowed comment on that?
Of course, go for it, Tim.
Luke, what is a woman?
Okay, well, for me, in my opinion, I see the woman in the family as someone who is there to nurture the children and is there to... I see the woman, I think a modern woman can, of course, be out and working, but I do see the utility of the woman being there with the women and fulfilling, of the children and being there for the children's needs, that softness and all the children came from inside of her and spent 9 months living inside of her, and there's this deeper connection, and I would say that I see that in my wife with her niece and nephew, and I see that in my mom with me and my brother. There's something that the mother has that the father doesn't, that is so nourishing, and it's there in the worst moments and there in the weakest moments, and it's always there. I think I think that there's some strong energy in the mother that the father doesn't have. So the mother being there for the children, a woman being there with the children, I think is fully embodied. And I think there's also something balanced about the artistic expression, their ability to express themselves, their dedication to their craft, their dedication to their physical fitness, strength to be able to help their family succeed and be safe and thrive and blossom. I think they can be very similar to being a man. So they would probably be what I would say, what is a woman? Someone who's morally aligned, someone who is artistically aligned, someone who is physically aligned, and not to go too deep into these tickets here, but just as you were talking, this brought it to my attention. Was what then is a woman who can't have a family, or who hasn't been fortunate enough to find that? Yeah. Is there any solace for people who go through this life probably yearning for that, even if in denial or not, whether they've actively tried to pursue a family or just fit by medical reasons or for whatever have failed to be able to produce it? Like, is there any words of comfort? Like, what makes them any less of a woman? If they're not able to fulfill that truest expression of nature. And it's something we've become very conscious of in the last little while, because we've a healthy pregnancy going on at the moment, and we've a little girl coming. And like, you become so aware for how much this means to my wife and to women in general. And then you realize the amount of women that can't have kids is painfully high. Yeah. Wow. And so how do you... It's not offering words of comfort, but for those people who have been not able to have families, how do they find their truest expression? Yeah, that's a really good question as well. And it's going deep there in this podcast. I know. Sure. I literally said I'm not going to go too deep in the thickets, and then yeah. So I think just as people, it doesn't, our ability to be fully embodied people doesn't depend on having a family. I would say, having a family can be a part of your journey. And I think we have our own unique gifts as men and women to give to our family, but I certainly don't think it's essential. I think for the people that don't have a family or can't have a family, they can see it as a blessing or a curse, and maybe they have to go through the process where that revolves around through blessing and curses, through their perception changes. Exactly. And if we have a family, hopefully we can make the most of it, and if we can play the hand that we've been dealt, and if we don't have a family, hopefully we can make the most of it. We can play the hand we can be dealt. There's just being a good person, being kind, supporting society. I think those are values that any good man or woman could aspire to.
Yeah, I like that answer. That's a good answer. Coming back to Latin America. Yeah. So we've gone twice. Yeah. You're recuperating and planning again for the next stint. And this one turned out to be a year and 7 months, roughly.
Yeah.
So how does a man prepare himself for... Did you know it was going to be that long?
It was indefinitely long. I had
there was no return ticket?
No, there was no return ticket. I had about 15,000, and I was heading over there to see how long I'd last. And I was hoping it'd be a long time.
What did you even pack?
I packed. It's funny. I packed. I had a big rucksack to start with, and I had maybe 5-10 t-shirts. Obviously, I like wearing climbing pants, so I had 2 or 3 climbing pants, pair of shorts, and a pair of sandals, and then my hiking boots.
So one backpack.
Yeah, Yes, and I did not bring over my guitar that second time. I'm very avid guitar player, musician, so I brought it over the first time to Mexico. Mexicans love me playing music. I was invited everywhere to come play music.
What were you playing? What sort of stuff? I saw some of the videos actually. You met up with 2 gingers on a mic. Darren. Simon, one of Simon's brothers.
Yeah.
Darren or Darren?
I can't remember. Darren.
The comedian. Darren. Yeah. I actually remember the 2 of you were in the same location in Mexico for a little while. Am I right with
but
this?
Not together. I told him Oaxaca. I told him some places to go see.
I thought you had teamed up over there.
No, unfortunately.
So what sort of stuff are you playing for these Mexicans?
Yeah, so I play a lot of medicine music. So the music that's based around this culture of psychedelic science and psychedelic healing. There's a massive musical element to it. Music made inspired by it and to inspire it.
I've heard you singing, and I'm not going to put you on the spot, but it is quite a different sound. And it's fascinating how when you hear it, if you never experienced a psychedelic, it's not that the music will invoke a psychedelic experience, but the music sounds otherworldly.
Yeah.
It's you listen to the radio, there's pop music, everyone knows what pop music sounds like. It's similar chords and the whole shebang. And then there's folk music or throat singing, and there's all different variations of expression music. But then there's this whole genre of psychedelic music that does seem to pull the strings of the internal harp that relates to psychedelic experiences.
Yeah, sure.
It's very bizarre.
Yeah, it is. So it just for anyone listening, I would say that the genre, if they're interested, is called medicine music. So because it's not based on taking a psychedelic to achieve this get its worth from the music, right? The music is based for healing. It can incorporate yogic mantras. It can incorporate Latin American indigenous chants. It can incorporate London grime experiences of integrating East and Western healing modalities. This is just medicine music, and so I've experienced a big part of my job in Latin America was because I'm an okay musician, I'll say. I was invited to come play music with pretty much I got to the stage where I knew anytime I'd bring my guitar to a retreat or a ceremony, I would be invited as an employee to come and work there.
Wow.
To come and play, to come and work. People loved the music so much, and that was exactly. So it was really cool place to be, where I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go here tonight and I know I'm going to get a job. So and these medicines are legal. It's a part of Latin American culture, not all culture, but it's legal in a lot of places in Latin America, so it's all kind of above board. And so I've just had these experiences hundreds of times with different medicines, using the music and starting to study through my experiences, bringing emotion into music, what the people are going through, watching them change and react to the vibrations that I pass through them, that I put out, that I pass through them. Yeah, and so it becomes this almost like I'm painting this picture through your mind with the energy I'm passing through my body through. And it's when I play, I move always because I'm creating antennas that are sending out different signals to convey the feeling that I'm trying to get across, right? So it's a transmission of feeling rather than playing music for you. I'm trying to connect with, if the song is about happiness, I am trying to connect with something that's gonna make you smile, you know? I'm gonna get you.
Damn it, you got me!
I'm gonna get you across the room. And if it's sadness, you know, I will feel that and I will send that out. And I try to just do this like very respectfully and very responsibly. You know, I really try to hold this when I play for people in these states as in the highest regard. Essentially, it is one of the greatest privileges of my life to guide people through these journeys with my music. Yeah.
So how come you didn't bring the guitar that time?
Because I wanted to go without it. I wanted to go without this safety crutch that I knew, I'll bring this, I'll take this wherever I go, and I'll just be welcome. I just said, no, man, just go naked, like go
so
without the guitar.
The guitar was a shield to your personality.
Yeah. I can't be practicing it then. See, can I be loved? Like, see, can I just actually be loved for me and not just for my music? And I know my music is me, but there's just, you know, sometimes we need to let go of some of those things that we prop up our identity to see who we are underneath.
So what was the first place you landed when you went back for the third time?
Colombia, Bogota. Absolutely terrifying. Yeah, very hard time in my life for me. Still, I was having a very hard time. You know, I was really still the coronavirus was in full swing in Cork. Everything was locked down. It was quite horrendous, and I was incredibly stressed, and it was a very hard time. I spent 4 months. I spent a few weeks in Bogota and just outside the city. Then I tried to fly to Peru, was kicked out of Peru because apparently people with a European passport weren't allowed into Peru, even though when I went there it said people that had been in Europe in the last 2 weeks weren't allowed into Peru. So I was literally just turned around and sent back. I'm going, okay, what am I doing now? I wanted to go to the Peruvian Amazon. I had this massive retreat booked to go and attend it, and now I'm just here in Bogota on my own. I said, okay, I'm just going to go down to the Colombian Amazon, which is like a 12-hour bus journey down south. So I just hopped on the bus straight away and went. And I spent a month down in the Amazon that time. And because it was such a difficult time in my life, and it really was not a good place for me to be. You know, I really don't recommend psychedelic medicine for people who are in crisis or are struggling with grief. I really don't feel it's a good. And I felt that fully. Now I fully understand that, because it was like using the wrong tool for the job. It can be very dangerous as well. And I remember one night I had such an incredibly painful, emotional night. I won't go into it on the podcast, but it was just one of the darkest nights of my life. And the next day, the process still continued. This is very strange for it to continue into the next day. Normally, after 4 to 6 hours, the process will end and you'll feel sober and okay. Process was still going on for me into the next day, very painfully, very discomfort in my body and my mind. And the guys that I was with were like, we have to go, man, we can't stay here with you, like you're like, you know, we're just going to leave you with the shaman here and we're just going to go, like we have to go, we just can't stay here with you. I was like, really? Wow. That's like, in my mind I'm thinking, wow guys, you're leaving me here on my own, and I'm clearly need help. You know, I'm not well.
Who are these now that left?
Guys that were staying at the hostel I'd been staying in the Amazon. You know, I didn't know them very well, but I wouldn't have done that to someone. I don't think I wouldn't have just left them there. And one guy stayed, Yuri, and he stayed with me. He's got a very strong spiritual compass, strong moral compass, and he stayed with me. And I'm like eternally grateful for Yuri. We still work together, and we're currently working on a project at the moment, which I'm very excited to launch with him. And he told me, hey brother, just come up to the Andes with me. I'm going up there to see a community that are like a family to me, and you can stay with them away from the intensity of the jungle and away from the intensity of ayahuasca, and you can just ground yourself. They just farm, and they do a spiritual practice where they meditate. They don't use electricity. They have one socket up there, no Wi-Fi, no phones, kind of like Quakers, what we might be familiar with. So I went up there, and it was really tough. They didn't speak any English, but I learned how to speak Spanish. I fully went like what did I say? I went native. I fully went native with them all, you know. And I was just involved in their spiritual practices that were all around like respecting the land, paying thanks to the land, working on the land, giving your blood and sweat into the land, and it will give you back. Actually, a really cool story. I was out on their holy spot one night. I used to go out into the holy spot every night after work and just do some pranayama, some breathwork practices from yoga. I'd meditate and I would actually pray, and I'd go, I'm just going through a lot of grief right now, and it's hurting me a lot. You know, the work really helped me. Physical exercise really helps me like process emotions, come into my body. And at that time I was going, oh, I'm really having a tough time and I really need help. It was pure dark, couldn't see anything. And I'm putting my hands down the way the shaman, the mamo, the head had shown me how, of the community had shown me how to do. Put your hands into the ground and start like speaking with the earth. So I put my hands into the ground and going, Earth, I just, you know, Mother Earth here, I've been working really hard. You know, I've got blisters all over my hands. I've got cuts everywhere. I'm planting yucca, potatoes over there. I'm building the church, the spiritual center of worship. It's not for Christian worship. I said, you know, I need something, please. And next thing I get, this hammer smashes me on the finger. I can't see what it is, but it feels like a hammer has hit me. And I go, I grab my phone and I open it, and a scorpion has just stung me.
No way.
I'm hands on the ground going, please give me a sign like to help me and that I'm doing the right thing here. Stung in the finger. I go, okay, I don't know if I'm going to die here now, because I don't know how strong this venom is. It's a small black scorpion. It's probably the size of my thumb, we'll say, right? And then a big tail at the end of it. Very scary to see.
I believe it.
So I just go, okay, fuck, I'm going to go back. 10-minute walk. I'm like trying to keep my heart rate super low, trying to not let my thoughts get the better of me. I'm like, okay, let's just get to the guys. They'll know what to do with it. They'll be familiar with this. I get in and I say, it's so sore. Oh my God, it's traveling all the way up from my finger up into my shoulder. And I'm thinking, oh, is this going into my heart now? I'm like, on my left hand, it's so sore. I'm like, okay, I go to the guys and I'm like trying to, my Spanish is really broken at the time. I'm trying to explain to them I got stung. Me pico un escorpio. I'm trying to like break it down. My mind's also racing, and they say, they bring me into the like head shaman or something, the head shaman, and he's like, he just starts laughing. He just says to his little boy, he says, go look after him. And the little boy takes me away and starts rubbing tobacco over it. And he's like, no, it's all good, man. I've been stung like 8 times by a scorpion. He's like 10 years old.
Oh,
like, I've been stung 8 times, man. It's all good. It's going to be sore, but you'll be okay.
No way. Tobacco.
Yeah. That's what they use. It's an antibacterial. It's
like
antiviral.
dock leaf over here for Nettleston.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It's a very they use it very medicinally.
Like tobacco that's used for cigarette production.
Yeah, but
Same tobacco.
they exactly. Yeah, but they it's called mapacho. They use it over there, a strain of tobacco that's like super strong nicotine content, but they use it very medicinally. They will either snort the powder, they'll blow it, and they'll go in a very like deep physical experience with their body.
Is that like rapé?
Rapé, exactly, yeah. They will sometimes gum this paste called ambil, which again brings on this kind of experience for you, I suppose. And
are we talking like ultra focused?
No,
like...
it's deeper. It calls you down. It calls you to rest. Like it calls. Sometimes people can get sick from it. Sometimes you need to lie down from it. But it's like a full body will vibrate. And you get a lot of insights mentally. You'll get a lot of really clear and wonderful thoughts about things. Maybe for me, things that I should do. I should focus on a song like this. I should focus on my music. I should connect with this person. I should call my brother and tell him I love him. These things pop up for me, you know. So he rubs the ambil, the paste around. He's like, I've been stung a bunch of times. So I'm hitchhiking into the town the next day just to get some shopping or something like that. And this farmer picks me up along the way. I'm talking to him. I was like, man, this scorpion. I'm speaking Spanish. He's like, man, this scorpion stung me yesterday. He's like, what do you think about that? He's like, oh, that's a great blessing. That's incredible. This is a very powerful medicine. Yeah, this is a very powerful medicine. This is it will improve your immunity. You'll feel amazing from it. And it's still hurting me the next day. It's just like a 2 out of 10 rather than an 8 out of 10, we'll say, you know. And then I'm talking to this other like Kundalini teacher a few months later, and he says, oh yeah, like the scorpion can be considered as like, it's got such a big tail that it's launching its venom. It's considered like a grounding force, right? So for me, that kind of metaphorically makes sense, because I was so in my head at that time with the grief that I was going through and the hard time in my life I was going through from these interpersonal issues that were going on. that I kind of resonated with that, I suppose. I was like, oh, that makes sense. It was like literally synchronizing the earth, going like, here, this will bring you down to earth. Here's your gift, boom, you know. And that's being there in the Andes was so beautiful for me, because it was the one time in all those times that I traveled. Into 2 months in Mexico, and then around a month before that in the Amazon, and 2 weeks in Bogota, and I had gone, okay, now I finally found a safe place that I can actually do the spiritual work, or the work that I'm actually here for. And it didn't happen to be around ayahuasca, it happened to be actually around just the Muisca's spiritual practice that they were doing, and it was incredible. I'm so grateful for it. Very, very beautiful time of my life. Very, very painful and difficult, but really, really toughened me up a lot, actually.
What was the Andes like in general? Like, how big is this community, first of all?
The community was probably, I'll just say 100 people. Yeah, there are loads of people coming and going always, you know. So there's people who travel from all over the world, come live with them. They travel from all over Colombia to come live with them. They're always going to events, you know, people that resonate with their message.
So say, how big is the community? I missed that.
We'll just say 100 people live there.
Okay.
Maybe a little less.
And then, like, does it double in population with tourists, or...?
It's not a tourist thing.
Okay.
It's more people that are there for the spiritual. You'd have to be connected to go there. Okay. So I was lucky, you know. I couldn't have probably just shown up there. I might have been like kicked out or not just allowed in the first place. Yeah. You know, the head shaman was the head shaman was very standoffish. You know, he's like hugging everyone. You see the Kane and Peel, or what are they called? They're two...
Keel and Peel.
Yeah, they're doing that. Hey, brother! Yeah. They're all hugging it. And then that's what the shaman was like with me. He's like saying hey to everyone. All his buddies were getting off to us. And then for me, he's like, okay, outsider. Yeah, I had to...
He made it very clear for you, like...
Yeah, I had to really earn their trust, but I worked my ass off. And by the end, I was speaking Spanish. I was doing their slang. I was like... they were loving my music. And I'd really gone through hard times. They'd see me, like, some of the sweat lodges that we did fucking broke people badly.
Sweat lodges.
Sweat lodge. We're all in the sweat lodge. Big hot rocks. Water's poured on top. You're saying that each round is for a prayer, for something, breaks you down very intensely. It's kind of like you're suffering, and that is charging your intention for the ceremony.
And these people, these practices are like ancient to these people?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the Temazcal, or the I can't recall. There's another name for it over in Latin America as well. There's probably a few of them, but it's ubiquitous across Latin America. And each of the different tribes like, this the right way to do it. This is the right way to do it. But they're all in gringo eyes, they're doing the same thing. You know, Western eyes.
And so, how long did you spend with that community?
I think I spent 2 months there.
Oh wow, that's a good.
And by the end of it, I was like super hardcore, like farmer, super strong. Like I said, speaking all the local slang. And my friend came back. Yuri came back after the 2 months. And he's like, wow, he's like, man, you're like one of them now. He's like, I was amazed to see how impressed he was by me. But I was also like, yeah, man, I fucking chop the wood, and I go out into the jungle and into the forest and get all the stuff. And I like make the fires. I like, you know, I'm taking part in their spiritual discourse at night time.
Are you wearing their clothes?
I hadn't started wearing their clothes. They were all white, right? And it's like, I can't remember what the significance of it was, but they were all white, and it's like non-synthetic material. I just bought my first kind of we would call it like a drug rug. Yeah. Well, obviously for them, it's
the shawl.
It's actually a poncho. Sorry, it wasn't quite a drug rug. It was very big, and I had it custom made, so it had mixed in green for Ireland in the threads. So it was like white and a little bit of green put in there. So it's really cool. I had all these like secret pouches stitched into it. I still haven't been back there, and they've kept it for me, you know.
Oh wow!
So I just and then I ended up leaving just with my backpack from there, just a little rucksack. So I'm going into the Amazon for 2 weeks with a German buddy I'd made who'd also come there. And after that, I actually ended up flying over to Mexico. I didn't go back there because turn of events happened. I had to fly up to Mexico really quickly, and I actually never ended up going back to Colombia after that point. So it's there. It's really shocking. Only with my little backpack, my big backpack with all my clothes is still in there with the Muisca.
No way.
Yeah.
And have you any contact with them? Like,
yeah, for sure.
So there is technology up there, but it's just rarely used.
Yeah, so they've got like their kind of main area for hanging out, and there's an electrical outlet there.
Okay.
And so there's like, you have to kind of walk up on top of the hill to get signals. Sometimes you can get it near the electrical outlet, but the electrical outlet is literally two sockets, and maybe they've expanded that into 6 sockets if you plug in the extender cable. Do you know what I mean?
Not health and safety approved.
No, not really.
Is there, like, on a side note, is there an electrical line going the whole way up the Andes? So in order for them to have power,
they might have run one out to connect with a line maybe a few kilometers away. I'm sure it's not hardwired in there. I'm sure they've done something with it.
And like sleeping conditions.
I slept on the floor in a tent on a yoga mat. And it was
for 2 months.
Yeah, the first week was really hard. and my body was really cold. The ground was taking all the warmth from my body, and it really hurt me. And then after 2 weeks, they'd found I had found out that I was sleeping that way. I just thought that was normal. That's the way they did it. And then they're like, oh shit, man, here we've got these like thick pads for you to sleep on. So and it was a little bit easier after
Your
that.
own tent, or like do they live in tents, or what sort of?
Yeah, they've got a bunch of tents. They sleep in hammocks. Some people
Like
sleep
exposed hammocks?
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
It's a proper mountain community.
Yeah. Really cool. Really respect them, and they choose to live this way. They're not impoverished.
I get what you mean.
They actually almost reject technology. They certainly reject plastic. They see plastic as like damaging the world and us beyond repair. You know, so they're totally against that. They're all about like grow your own food, do our spiritual practice, reject all things that hurt, that are kind of, they reject a lot of technology essentially, but they're not technophobic, I suppose, you know. I
can't remember where I was reading this. It could have been The Happiness Hypothesis, Jonathan Haidt's book, but there was one Amazon tribe that some do-gooder thought he could revolutionize them with mobile phones and internet, and he introduced it to the community and destroyed the community.
Oh yeah.
Destroyed
Okay.
it.
I've heard
In the
that
end,
before, yeah.
I don't know if they killed them, but they were like, get out.
Okay, well, don't be under any illusions. Like, that's the only, like, everyone in that community had a phone.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
Everyone in the Amazon had a phone as well.
Seriously?
Yeah, there's this idea of the indigenous Indian, like, you have to probably trek for days to go and visit them.
Okay.
You know, there's no roads or anything going to bring you to them. Like, everyone, all the shamans, they all have phones. Like, they all have, you know, they've all got
Instagram?
electricity. Yeah, they all have Instagram. Yeah, they all have electricity going into their house.
You just ruined the fantasy.
I know. It's mind blowing, but I mean, other than that, they don't need a lot. They've got a little wooden shack. They've got their roast chickens. They love eating roast chickens, and they all walk around their wellies, and they all got machetes for, like, I suppose, chopping down things in the forest, but they're all like wearing like jeans and t-shirts, like dressed like yourself, you know. They're just like in their casuals. So
because we spent a bit of time up in India, up in Darjeeling, and you're up in the Himalayas up there, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something else. But we did a trek up to Sandok Fu, and we went through Nepal, and we went into like communities in Nepal.
Yeah.
Oh, like when I say tranquil.
Yeah.
You just can't. Like when you're up there and you're sitting in one of the little huts and there's not a sound, man. There's not a sound.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Away from the cities, man, there is something special.
Incredible. And like you hear maybe the scruffle of the chickens over and scratching over in the dirt, and maybe the odd clang of a pot or from some yak on the other side of the hill. Yeah. And it's just, you feel it. You just feel it. You feel it. It is beautiful. Definitely. So you go from there to where?
I mean, for months and months I'm traveling now. So I go from there to Mexico and I meet my wife.
But you went down into the Amazon for 2 weeks with your German buddy?
Yes, so we were down there. He gets lost in the jungle for 9 days. I'm a part of like a massive international search and rescue forum.
No way!
Oh man, every few months there's a story like this now. You know,
what?
Yeah.
Go on, give us that rundown, like.
Okay, so we're in the jungle drinking ayahuasca with the shaman I'd been drinking with several times before. I really liked this guy. He seemed a few of the shamans were kind of egotistical. They're like, I'm the king of the castle. I have the power to heal you. And I wasn't like vibing with it, I suppose I would say. And this guy was like out in the countryside. He was with his family, and I just liked his vibe.
So when I think Amazon, I'm thinking trees, vines, vegetation.
Yeah.
No, you say countryside there.
Sorry, so there is towns in the Amazon, right?
Okay.
So
within the Amazon forest
so
boundary.
it'd be like, we'll say near, out a little bit in Ireland, out by the football pitches, then out a little bit more. That's where the kind of more in the towns would be.
Yeah.
And then you'd be out in the sticks. Where I was going out a bit more, so I'd have to probably get I was still on the road accessible, and then I'd have to walk maybe 20 minutes once I got off the road to get to your man's house.
And like, are we talking like mud huts, or are we talking
brick
and mortar structures?
No, wooden cabins.
Wooden
they were linked corrugated iron and wood to build their structures,
So this German dude, so you're
he's like a brother to me, this German guy. The only guy that speaks English there. We've both gone through the shits up in the mountains, like really hard times. We've both seen each other, like they pull all-nighters all the time for their spiritual practices. So we're both going through these all-nighters, fucking doing our...
And that takes it out of you.
It really hurts. And we were both seeing each other like this. Zombies going, and we're nodding at each other like, yeah man, we'll go through this, So we're like, let's go down to the Amazon together. We got each other's backs, and really, really hard time again. It wasn't bad now. It wasn't good, but it wasn't as horror stories.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, like I was there kind of in a crisis of grief and like a hard time in my life.
Yeah.
And I would not recommend anyone go.
You don't want to go into that on the podcast?
I won't.
Okay.
I won't. It's just very personal, and I don't think it'd just be appropriate for a podcast.
Understood.
Yeah. So we went to the Amazon, me and Daniel, my German friend, and on I think the second or third night of us drinking the medicine with Taita Luis, that's the shaman Taita Luis is his name, Eliberto, so he's I can't wait to see him again. I'm hoping to bring a group actually to Colombia maybe in 2025 to go visit him and a few other people that I'd met over there and that I really trust. So we're there, and I think it's our second or third night with him, and we're sitting around a fire, and Daniel is kind of going into a non-ordinary state. You know, he's kind of being taken by the medicine, and he starts actually rattling me and becoming a little bit like aggressive towards me. He's like trying to convince me of something, and I'm just like, man, I need my space, like please leave me. And I'm like starting to get angry. I'm like, stop. And he got upset with something about because we were like in this together, and he couldn't convince me of something I needed to be convinced of in his eyes. And so he saw, and because I got angry and said, don't do that again, man, I'm going to take a break now and like go over here, you go over there. And so the next morning I go through my process for the rest of the night. The next morning I wake up, and I'm just hanging out by the fire. The little kids bring me down to watermelon, and I'm having a chat with whoever else was there. And then the shaman comes over, and he's like, so we haven't seen Daniel since whenever last night, 1 o'clock in the morning last night. I'm like, what? And he explains it to me, and I'm still kind of a little bit discombobulated from the medicine. So for a day or two, me and the lady that were there with Daniel are still like, okay, like surely he's got it under control. And so over the day or two, it's reported to the police as we realise he's not nearby. And then from there, massive national search party begins, and then massive international as the Germans get involved. I'm speaking my like not great Spanish at the time, but it's sufficient. I can still speak Spanish at that stage. With the German people, I'm speaking English, and they're trying to say, okay, if we give you the money, can you organise the dogs and helicopters for us with the local military group? And I'm like, no way. Like, how am I supposed to do that? Like, who do I call for that? You know, and then the police over in I'm trying to recall the name of the town I was in now, down in the Colombian Amazon. In any case, they're super chill. You know, they're not into doing anything quick, and they're not into doing anything that involves search parties. They're more relaxed pace, you know, and so they were not really up for big adventures. They were kind of being forced by the international pressure. I remember working with the head detective. He was my age as well, probably like 27 at the time, 28. And he was like, we were in it together. We were like, oh geez, man, this is so intense, isn't it? Rather than this like grizzled Amazon man, soldier man, like, we'll go into the jungle and we'll find him, we'll get the dogs and the helicopters and the infrared. It's like, geez, man, this is so intense. I was like, oh. And we had some nice moments meeting him. So Daniel was missing for 9 days. We found him after 9 days, totally emancipated. I think emancipated would be the right word, but in any case, he was like famished. He looked like he'd come out of a concentration camp, and he had no weight, covered in cuts and scars from the plants are very aggressive there, like very sharp to protect themselves. And you know, just being eaten alive by the insects, and his stomach was diseased. He had contracted disease from drinking dirty water and eating bad food. So we were in hospital together, and it was really intense. And
what was his recovery like?
Yeah, he spent a few weeks living with the shaman that we had been living with, and me and him had been actually living around the fire. So for about 2 weeks, we didn't have a tent, we just slept beside the fire every night. So it was really cool actually, like again, just sleeping on the ground on a mat beside the fire. You know, I'd roll over, I'd check the fire, just push the log a little bit further in, the fire would keep going, listening to the orchestra, the symphony of the Amazon around us all night, you know. So he just went to live there with the shaman helped heal him with like herbs and rest and TLC.
How long did he spend in hospital?
He was 2 nights, I think it was just... No, he's actually just a few hours in hospital. He might have been there for a night.
The boys were like, he'll be fine.
Yeah, and I think that night that we left on the same night he was found. He was found midday. We left that night at like 11 or 12 o'clock. We finally get back to the shaman's just outside his gaff out in the jungle where the taxi's on this dirt road. I get out of it. Next thing, this fucking American pit bull bites me on the ass through my pants, tears my pants and clamps into my glute.
What?
Yeah, I couldn't believe it after all of that, like, and the fucking pit bull bites me on the ass. I'm screaming and I'm looking at the dog and the dog's kind of backing away but fiercely, and I'm picking up this rock to throw it, and I'm like, I really wanted to throw this rock at him, and I was like, that's not the right thing to do. Like, you know, he's not advancing on me again. But I was so angry that he had bit me on the ass through my pants and hurt and bled me, you know, I was bleeding like, and I was like, oh, I just had to let it go, you know, and I was, but I just couldn't believe that was there at the end.
Where did the pit bull come out of?
He just lived locally, and he was just, you know, intruders coming in late in the night, 1 o'clock in the morning, we were probably back on.
He was actually doing his thing.
Yeah, he was doing his job.
He was doing his thing.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
You didn't get medical treatment or anything for the bite?
I was just too tired. I just didn't care at that stage, man. I just wanted to go to bed, and I wanted to go to sleep by the fire on the ground. But I wanted to go to sleep, man, you know. And then so it just went out of my mind, I suppose.
The poor German dude, Daniel.
Yeah.
So just stayed with the people, and they just fed him back.
Yeah, they brought him back to health, and then he went back up to the mountains and lived there for a few months. And bought some land up there, actually. He's a very big part of our community now.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, he's over there.
Like, he's all in. Yeah.
Okay. And what was he doing when he ended up wandering off into the abyss?
He said he was called into the jungle, so yeah.
Fair enough,
really. I mean, like, in fairness, everyone should be accounted for by the shaman during the ceremony at all times. That's the should, right? Yeah. But realistically, over the space of 6 hours, if someone turns there, if the shaman needs to go to the toilet, or if he's, I don't know, fixing up something in his, I don't know, if he's doing tying shoelaces. So,
and also you want to let people have their experience as well. Some people you have to be able to trust them to go away a little bit and to be able to
it's very rare that happens. It's probably 1 in 1,000 people, not 1 in 1,000 experiences, 1 in 1,000 people that will have these experiences would do something like that. They said they've never had that happen before. The only other serious incident that they've had that I was aware of was someone died because they were taking cocaine before it, and maybe some combination of drugs that they had taken before taking the ayahuasca in the jungle that killed them, and that was sensationalized because he was a tourist.
Yeah. So like, they must have been stressing out while he was missing. Yeah, because they could see
his reputation was I imagine it was damaged. Unfortunately, he's a really good guy, and I feel it would have happened to any shaman taita that was working there. It just turned around and he was gone, you know. Yeah. He's big, strong lad. He would have just sprinted through the forest.
At least he's gotten back.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's still over there?
He comes back and forth to Germany. I think he's bought some land in Germany, but he owns land over in the mountains, so he goes over there regularly.
Oh, he'd be a good man to chat to. I wonder, like, how dark does your brain go in 9 days?
He said that the mosquitoes were eating him alive, and that if he did not focus on the mosquitoes eating him, it was very painful. But when he was able to focus on the present moment and the mosquitoes eating him, the pain changed into presence, and it was much more tolerable.
Wow.
Yeah, really intense.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
He's lucky he didn't catch some. Well, you said he did get.
He caught plenty of guys.
Yeah.
I actually thought he was dead. Honestly, I was like,
certainly
the jungle's just a part of the jungle now. You know, it'll just be instantly consumed. Like anything you put down, the ants are just all over it. Like the jungle will consume everything. Paul Rosalie, I think is his name.
Oh,
he just says that the jungle is just...
my wife actually sends him money, like she supports jungle keepers.
Yeah. He says it's just the weaving of sex and death is the jungle, you know, that's all it is happening over and over again.
So like when you're out in the jungle and you don't have like a clear place to put your head at night, like did Daniel have to pretty much keep moving the whole 9?
No, he got very sick then and he had to stay still for a few days. He was essentially dying. Like, I would say he was dying.
He was dying, I wouldn't have said he had much more.
I think he found some plastic crap he was covering himself up in, or I can't honestly remember, you know. There's actually videos and pictures of him being found by the military, and he looks appalling. I have some videos on my phone actually of him walking, and he's just like ridiculous, you know, of how I saw of his body in that, and just how destroyed he was.
It's amazing how fast the body will deteriorate under the right conditions.
Yeah, for sure. I'm surprised he survived, honestly.
Probably because he had probably so much muscle mass to begin with, like he had so much resources in the body, like, but a weaker person probably would have shriveled up in a couple
he
of days.
trained every day, he's calisthenics every day. So
yeah, I can appreciate that.
And we were both very strong mentally from all the work that we'd done with the Mariska and that, so probably a few things helped.
And like wild animals in the jungle,
there's jaguars. I didn't see any jaguars, but jaguars are a very big part of their like spiritual culture there, and there are jaguars there, and there's loads of snakes that will fuck you up. Like you don't want to wear any runners because they can bite your ankles, So I didn't have any experience with snakes.
So what are you wearing foot-wise?
You're wearing either wellies or hiking boots. Yeah.
Okay, something that covers the ankle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Big spiders, like loads of them running around over you, and
really.
Yeah. I had one spider when I was in just outside Boaktown, a farm, and a tarantula lived under my bed in the hole. And I have pictures of it on my phone where I catch him at night time hanging outside the hole and literally just beside my bed. I could reach from my bed and touch the hole, and I would just have to sleep in my bed at night. I had a net around my bed that was tucked under my mattress, so I knew he couldn't actually get into that unless I just moved the net by accident at night time. And it was terrifying to think like, okay, this spider, this tarantula the size of my hand is living right beside me and is probably walking around my bed at night time. And
that's horrible.
It was very scary the first 2 nights, but you just get used to it.
How are you now with daddy long legs?
I don't care about them. They don't bother me at all. I generally pick them up and put them outside, like off you
go. So after that experience and that stint in Amazon, you're up to Mexico to meet your other half.
Yeah. My wife, we met in Mexico, and we had an incredible time. We lived in communities. We worked with shamans all across Mexico. We lived in spiritual communities. Worked with ayahuasca. Went on a week-long tour into the Mexican desert to take peyote, another like ayahuasca for the desert is peyote. It's a plant. There's a very different culture based around it where it's their spiritual practice, and that was another very intense experience. We spent time in the jungle working with cacao, with the cacao bruja, the little witch in the jungle, who's a very close friend of mine. I don't mean that in a bad way. She's actually a magical person, and she's like deeply embedded and invested in cacao. She grows a lot of her cacao, and she does a lot of healing work with cacao and spiritual practice with it. So yeah, we were just traveling around, enjoying ourselves. Guatemala, we lived for 6 months then. We were teaching yoga and working in outdoor adventure. I was working as a rock climbing guide, a hiking guide. We were preparing for a PCT, a 6-month hike across the US, which long story which I won't get into, got banned from going into the US from a visa issue that I had essentially.
The whole US?
Yeah, permanently
banned?
Yeah. It's actually very heartbreaking, and
I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh, but
I've shed a lot of tears over this and had to go through a lot of legal avenues. We will still be pursuing legal avenues because it is actually really unjust what happened. I won't go into it, but it's just a misfortunate thing that has stopped me from getting
I got held in Indian immigration for 3 days, me and my wife.
Lovely.
Before we got onto the plane, it was excuse me sir, may we can we have you for a moment? And that started a 3-day ordeal in Kolkata. So I understand. Look, visas, the screw ups. It happens. Yeah, it's an administration slip up, and that's
Any person that was a decent person would say, oh yeah, of course you can come into the States from that. So we just have to pursue this legally and make sure that everything's on paper and gone down the right channels.
Okay, so is Guatemala as beautiful as it's made out to be?
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. Very diverse landscapes, and we live in some of the. We actually travel all over in a month. We almost spend no money because Kelsey organises me to play music in different restaurants and hotels. So I'm going around playing music and singing, and we're getting like free accommodations, and then we get this great job working as outdoor education instructors. And I'm doing gigs in a bar in the evenings, and also doing this during the day, teaching yoga, and this Lake Atitlan magical place of Western and all spiritualities from the world combined into one area. So you've got yogas, you've got plant medicine, you've got different types of meditation, you've got everything you can think of, family constellations, ecstatic dance, cacao ceremonies. If anyone is interested, check out the Eagle's Nest. It's just a spectacle to see this view of the lake. Just absolute magic. Yeah, fantastic time.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that was Guatemala.
I get kicked out of the US, and when we're supposed to do the 6-month hike, I spend a month solo traveling around El Salvador while my wife spends time with her family. We try to figure out what to do. We spend 1 more month, maybe 2 months in Mexico, traveling around Yucatan, which is Cancun, all these kind of very white sandy beach areas. And then we go to Spain and do Camino Santiago with my dad to wrap up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful, man.
Yeah, incredible.
Beautiful experience.
Too short, but
And that's like, it's funny when you say too short, and that's a year and 7 months, like nearly 2 years of a constant away time.
Yeah.
So like, and that's my thing, is I don't think there's any length of time that is going to be enough.
Probably not. That's I would agree. Yeah.
Not especially for someone who like immerses in the culture.
Yeah.
Like fair enough. If you're literally going to Cancun to drink tequila and sit on a beach, you're going to get bored of that pretty quick.
Yeah.
But like if you're going to go and each new day is going to be new adventure, and whatever comes, it's like we're going to get stuck in there.
Yeah.
That adventure never finishes, and you can never get enough of it. And I can see you even when you come back here, that same creative, enthusiastic energy is launched into everything else. Now over here it tends to be a bit more drab. Like you've got bills to pay, rent, tax,
system,
businesses, certs, all these. The bureaucracy, the red tape that comes in and crushes the creativity and the freedom, but at the same time, it has to be done in order to facilitate the next stage. And you've taken all these leaps and bounds. We didn't even get into the osteopathy, like, and I'll get you back for another day, like, because the osteopathy, your knowledge of the body is just as detailed as your knowledge of plant medicine and traveling and cultures and experiences.
I'm so passionate about physical wellness. You know, I've had it taken from me, and I got it back. So
to wrap up, like for people who are currently struggling with something most deepest struggles, it's very hard to put a finger on. And like we use words like I'm just sad, or I'm depressed, or I'm this. But for someone who just feels out of line, out of harmony, what words would you have for them?
Oh, that's a loaded question. There's a lot to unpack. So if I was to speak to anyone now that says that they feel really unwell in their lives, they feel out of harmony in their lives, I would just start with the basics. I wouldn't go into the deep things that, you know, I need to fix the relationship here, I need to do this type of meditation, I need to, you know, just start with the basics. Make sure your sleep is good. Yeah, make sure you've got a regular sleep time. You go to bed at 10, you wake up at 6, 8 hours. Make sure it's consistent. Make sure you're not looking at television late at night. Make sure you're not depending on stimulants to keep you going, right? Sleep is like one of the foundations for you to regain some harmony in your life and build. You need the foundation, otherwise you're building your castle on sand. Yeah, sleep, exercise, start cleaning your body, detoxing it so you can think properly, so you can feel good. Even if you feel so bad, you'll feel good after exercise. Start gently bringing that into play. And start working on yourself in whatever way you can. Yeah, we all know what to do. We all know if we need to go talk with someone, a therapist, or do some meditation class, or start journaling, or join a social group that doesn't involve around things that, you know, like I would just say not trying to join social groups that are involved around partying, because the price is too high to pay back if you're already in a deficit. So I'd work on installing some really strong pillars to build your castle on first.
Just to build on that one, because that would have been a wonderful one to wrap up on, but in relation to the sleep, because of this harmony that people experience, one of the first things to go is your sleep. How does someone who's already out of alignment, who's already unable to sleep without using benzos or any other additional, how does someone approach? And because you see, once you've had a couple of bad nights of sleep, you create this demon that when you go to put your phone down or your head on the bed, it's just not going to happen, and you're already ruined any chance of sleeping that night. How does someone just in that crucial moment, is there anything about like how do you get a sleep cycle back under you again?
Yeah, for sure. I've had to do it many times, and now I feel so strong in it that I my conviction with this would be to slowly start installing pillars in place that will get your sleep good. Yeah, because everyone's going to be a little bit different. So those pillars might look like, if you have to get up in the morning, force yourself up and get a coffee into you, then you'll be awake and you'll do some stuff. If you can start tiring yourself out during the day and not depending on those stimulants, just push through the tiredness, you will be tired enough to sleep at night. Yeah, you then the next day you might lose your sleep again, but you've got one day and you know that you've done it for one day. So maybe if you've done it for one day, you can get a 2-day streak next time, and maybe in a few weeks time you'll get a 3-day streak, and then eventually you'll get a 3-month streak. You know, and at that stage when you're sleeping for 8 hours a day, 3 months,
you're back.
You're living well. Like your life's at your fingertips. There, you can do it. You know, you can go for it from there. Yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Jen. Thank you very much for coming on, dude.
You're very welcome, my brother.
Excellent.